Hi, I'm Joe Scacciaferro, and this is On Location. All right, my next guest is not a typical On Location guest. He did his undergrad at John Hopkins University, then on to Wall Street as an investment banker. Being an early adopter of the web development and the internet, landed at Catalyst. He got his MBA from Wharton Business School. Very cool. Then he went on to a gig at ESPN as the head of finance for ESPN's magazine, and then head of finance for ESPN.com. And if I got any of these wrong, we're going to correct it as we go along. He moved over to the head of marketing for ESPN.com. There's a lot of stuff here. And with ESPN product team, he launched ESPN's actually relaunched ESPN's fantasy sports, and grew their base to over 5 times. From ESPN, and most people would just stop there, right? Nah. From ESPN, he jumped to Omnicam agency as an interbrand brand strategist, handling accounts from CNN to McDonald's, to American Cancer Society, Habitat for Humanity, just small accounts. And eventually, he started his own agency and built a video production company. And then with that, the video production company and a studio. And after selling that, he founded CROOW, spelt CROOW. Is amazing. And we've just met about less than a year ago through a mutual friend. But anyway, Dave Capece. Dave, welcome.
Thank you, Joe, so much for having me. Really appreciate being on the show.
Yeah, like I said before we went on air, I'm like really intimidated. You've accomplished so much and at such high levels.
Well, thank you, and of course, we all strive to do our best all the time, and sometimes we get to stretch ourselves in business, sometimes creatively. But I think if we always focus on being the best that we can and have a little bit of luck, we go places.
Oh, and I forgot to add, he is one of the nicest, most humblest people I have met. And I think the reason is because he's not directly involved in our industry.
Oh, man.
And that'll keep you humble. Yeah, we have really nice people that, if not unless you're in it. So anyway, David, let's unpack a little bit about, let's go back to the agency, because I think that's kind of where this plays, because I'm sure most people watching this are going, Joe, what the hell? But you bring so much value that I saw it immediately. So let's talk about even the ESPN stuff. Let's talk about from marketing on what that whole progress was.
Sure. So personally, I was always interested in creativity and marketing, and so and had some good experience in digital early in my career. I was able to put that together into an opportunity at ESPN. That first role at ESPN was on the finance side, and I was able to excel in that role, build the relationships internally at a great organization, and then the head of marketing for ESPN.com left, vacated the position, and with that opportunity, I was able to leverage all the great work that I had done to take over that role. And so, in terms of a role like that, that is was for me and is for many, something of a dream job, and really great organization, ESPN, to be a part of. And so from there, that catapulted being in branding and storytelling and marketing and digital, and rolling it all into one.
Yeah, no, and you're saying key words, and that was the motivation behind having you on here, because too many people in the creatives exclude certain things, not because of, oh, that's not worth it. It's because they don't know about it. And you just drop storytelling, you drop production, You dropped all of that creativity. Those are all things that are found traditionally in the front lines of production. But there's a whole other world that you were exposed to, that you got involved in. So talk a little bit about how storytelling works. Let's start there.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the nice things about being in an organization like ESPN is that you get to work on a series of projects to activate the brand. Of course, ESPN has always, held its brand in high regard, famous for many of its commercials. And so being brought up through that system, get to work with some of the best agencies out there. Also with new projects, had the opportunity to interview and vet different agencies and production teams. And when you do that, you learn about all the different styles out there. Of course, for a company like ESPN, the brand and the storytelling was aligned with its brand, which historically was about being a little bit more witty and bold and cutting edge. But every brand has its own storytelling. Which, interestingly enough, that's really what I honed my skill on at the role after at Interbrand, which is a branding agency, and learned the inner workings of how to, figure out brand positioning and brand narratives, and then bring that brand to life in the best manner possible. Which, of course, these days is video, but there's many ways to activate a brand.
Let's talk about that a little bit. And this is my own curiosity. So when you are working on a brand, and you're developing, a basis for it, where do you go internally to start finding that muse or finding that kernel that gets you going, the hook for a song in the music world?
Yeah, for sure. And I think you said it well, right? Because the whole point of a brand is having something that is compelling and different and unique and really makes that emotional connection. And you do have to unpack some of those kernels and nuggets so that you're not just saying something generic. So a lot of times in the upfront, it's thinking about it from a full market perspective. The market perspective includes the prospective customers, right? So who are we selling to? Understanding their view, understanding really their lives, their needs, their wants, their pains. Sometimes the kernel comes from there. Sometimes the kernel comes from looking at the market. You might look at a marketplace and say, my goodness, it's a sea of sameness. And you understand that sameness, and then that helps you creatively think about, well, what are different ways to be different? And then another possibility is looking from within the company at their culture, at their products, at their innovation. And I think you kind of put this market-based perspective together, and you start to see themes emerge. A lot of times what we would do is say, well, let's figure out like the top 5 or 10 themes, and then start to build hypotheses around where we could take each of those themes for a brand to stand out. And a lot of times, would then take that further into, okay, here's a positioning and storytelling possibility A, here's positioning and storytelling possibility B, and you sort of map these out into the future, and eventually through enough of this rigor, you uncover the way to go.
That's amazing. You know what you just described? You just described television networking. You just described songwriting in the music world. You just described Broadway plays. You just described every single creative outlet. And you're doing the same thing. So to that going down that path a little bit, do you or do your peers have a unique style? Let me qualify that for you. I get hired because I have a very particular style of the way I do things. If I was asked to put on a Shakespearean play, I'd be dead in the water. But I could easily do anything radical, X Games for ESPN. I could do that. That's where I fit in. Is that the same thing at your level and as you had gone through those markets?
What a great question. So I think that each of us as individuals naturally has our own style, and And then each company that we work for or team that we work with may also have its own style. And I think then you have to figure out how to bring that to bear for the client, which may have its own need. And so what I mean by that is my last company, Spark2 Studios, which was the brand agency production company that was sold. Our style and approach was to be disruptive. We wanted to challenge the status quo. So it was to be bold, fearless, unafraid, and that was the style of the agency. And usually the agency and the client should philosophically be pretty well matched, but sometimes we had to adapt that style, right? Because disrupting the status quo for a corporate client might be very different than disrupting the status quo for a new upstart in e-commerce or something like that. So it was really about taking the style and mixing and infusing it with the style appropriate for the client. Of course, the style of my last agency reflects my personal style. So a lot of those things that I said about being bold and creative and disrupting the status quo are true for myself as well. But that being said, also, personally, I do like to try to make it thoughtful and smart along with some of those elements. And so those are things that I try to infuse, but might not always be relevant for a campaign.
This is great. And this is why I told you people, this is an important episode. Maybe one of the best I think I've thrown together. So let's move to the next part, collaboration. Because when you're in the creative process, and you've been sitting at the helm of a lot of these places. So talk about how you organize and look for people to be creative and how you put those teams together, and then you being able to be a driving force in that.
Yeah, great. So the first thing I want to do is share what was the nugget that led me to personally prioritize collaboration. So when I was at ESPN and I was young in my career, I thought, wow, like I have a lot of ideas. I want to share my ideas. My ideas are so important. And what I realized over time is, well, everybody has ideas, and some of mine are great, some of mine are terrible. Some of yours might be great, some of yours might be terrible. And it's not about having the best idea. It's about how we come together as a team and collect the best ideas and then make them better together and then activate them. And so I had some good feedback and mentorship at ESPN that helped me pivot to being the person who was helping to foster and nurture ideas, and over time it became less about my ideas and more about getting to the best ideas. So just philosophically, that's a change that I underwent and a maturation that I underwent. Then specifically at the agency Spark2 Studios, we prioritize collaboration, so much so that when we started doing internal surveys of the team and said, hey, what is the one word that you associate with the company? Collaboration was the word every year in, year out, before the pandemic, during the pandemic, et cetera, et cetera. And it turned out it was just imbued into our DNA. So as we were building this highly collaborative agency, collaborative internally, collaborative with clients, what I realized is that technology could work harder to enable that collaboration. So that's why even before the pandemic, started dabbling with how do we build software tools that can enable better collaboration. And now over the last few years, we've converted that into CROOW, which is a company based on collaboration, specifically for the video production and creative industries, where we've built a platform and tools and software that enable that collaboration.
You just cracked the door a little bit to what I really want to get into, but I just want to cover one other aspect of what you were talking about. You mentioned mentorship. Actually, you mentioned two words as you were going through since we started that I just want to make sure we spend a little bit of time on. Mentorship and networking. Even within a corporate environment, you still are networking. You know, and then so pick one, and then we'll break that down a little bit. So let's start with mentorship.
Yeah, for sure. And you hit on two really important themes and what I would encourage everybody to do in early in their career and throughout their career. So when I was at ESPN, which is a great company, of course, with a lot of leaders and smart people, what I realized is, wow, there's such amazing people here. I would love for some of these people to be my mentor. So ESPN at that time did not have a mentorship program. So I created my own personal mentorship program, which was that David would find somebody he looked up to and ask them to mentor me for 6 months. And I did that the first time, and pick somebody in a slightly different department so they could give me a unique perspective, also helped me build relationships. And so did that for 6 months. So simply set up a meeting monthly, and I brought an agenda. I got really good feedback, perspective, inspiration. That worked well. So I did it again and again after that. And so I just kind of had my self-guided mentorship program where I pick my mentors. And then just to bring that forward, even here with CROOW, one of the things that I'm grateful for is that I still have mentors and coaches. So I'm part of an accelerator and part of a startup network where I have access to coaches, and I do get at least one coaching session a month. And invaluable. And people have said to me, wow, you still have coaches? Like, yes, I need coaches. We all need coaches. You never get too old for coaches and mentorship. So I highly encourage everyone to do what they can to get that coaching.
And what was really cool is in what you said, because a lot of people will go, oh, okay, well, my company doesn't offer that. Or, well, if I'm a freelancer, how do I go do that? You said the key word. You just decided to do it. And when you approached people, that's a bold moment, because you could have also been shot down pretty quickly by somebody going, no, I don't have time for that. Why would I do that?
Yeah,
Why would I groom somebody to take my job?
Yeah, but what an amazing experience. So in asking, you're right. I wonder if they'll want to be my mentor, because it takes somebody time, and other people are busy too. Each of those people that I asked, they appreciated the experience and being asked, and they made the time. And of course, I made sure that each of the sessions was useful, because otherwise now I'm wasting their time. But you'd be surprised, people want to help. And so if you raise your hand and ask for help and you make it a positive, meaningful experience, then they're appreciative and willing to give their time as well.
Yeah, that's that part. It's a shame a lot of us learned it too far down the line, but that's what we try to instill on any young, even before Faro City, just any intern working with us. We all encouraged, ask questions. Don't ask us when we're on the air, or don't ask us in the middle of a concert, but ask questions. Come up, ask us, and then don't ask the same question 3 times in a row, because then I know you're not paying attention. But if you're putting that out there, like you said, efficiently using your mentor's time, that's great. You know where this is big? It's such an LA thing that the West Coast does that the best. And I'm not a big West Coast guy, but the West Coast does this really, really well. They still have groups. I have friends of mine that have been in the business 30, 40 years. They all get together on a Saturday. They go out lunch, so they're not all getting hammered. They go out and they share information. And you have lawyers and accountants and production people and writers, and it's all everything you've just said is what makes success happen. Your proof of concept right there.
Yeah, thank you. And for sure, you can do it in whatever way you prefer. So as you're saying, Joe, it could be that you like a group setting or a group network setting. And I think as long as you're talking to people and engaging them and asking questions, getting a pulse on either the market or how people are handling business, any of these things, just so that you're having the most current information and best practices.
Okay, so now let's open the door completely. So I'm going to set it up because a mutual friend of ours, Kevin Corbett, called me up and said, hey, I got a buddy of mine down in Florida. He just started a new company. I knew really not much of it at all. And I'll do anything Kevin asked me to do, especially if he's making a recommendation. I'm sure it's going to be of value. Kevin's a really smart person and intuitive. So when you and I first talked, it took me 10 minutes to realize, oh, this guy A is just a great person. And it's somebody I'd like into my network. And then obviously is onto something. And then you shared your product with us. And I went, holy shit, this is really really powerful. And it's so interesting that you didn't come at it from the industries that I'm in all the time, and I use production. So why don't you talk a little bit about the actual product and its benefits, and then I can kind of add in how that's been, I can see it being hugely powerful for what I do personally.
Sure. So the genesis of this was pain points that we had in our digital agency and video production company, which is that while we were great at collaboration and great at storytelling, some of the process would break down in a sea of endless emails and Google Docs and Google Sheets and even text messages and phone calls where just the information would get lost. And that would either mean that we were missing key information on a project, or maybe we thought we had approval but didn't really have approval, or maybe the clients were going through 4 or 5 or 6 rounds of revisions versus a more typical 1, 2, or 3. And so looking at all those pain points in the software in the market, there are a lot of softwares that can do one thing or another. But then you have to keep on switching between software. So we built CROOW specifically for the video industry and creatives, so that there's a way to go through the process of video production. So think about production management, and have the tools and the processes at your disposal via automation and software, so that you can get rid of a lot of wasted time and effort, makes it for a better experience for you and also for the client. And so whether that means that it's easier to do some of the upfront planning and storyboarding, we have a tool for that, or if it is getting together consistent call sheets for the production, we have a tool for that. Or same thing for video review and feedback, we have a tool for that. And all of this is something where we've done it with the production team in mind, trying to make it as affordable as possible, and also making it so that clients can have access to what they need for free. So the client doesn't pay, the production team is able to bring them in the fold and streamline management.
Yeah, and again, the simple words, and everybody's going to go, yeah, okay, we have that. I'm telling you that you don't have this, because we do this and we suffer the pains, and I've gotten pretty efficient at using several apps when we're doing, and we do big productions. So there's a lot of hands touching it, and it touches at different parts of the timeline. There's a group of people in the beginning of it that were in pre-production and we're in development. Then there's another group of people that when we're in production, then there's another group of people in post-productions. But sometimes when you get to post-productions, you need to circle back to the other thing. And then it was like, shit, what app was that on? And where's those emails? What was that guy's name again? And then you're doing searches, and you do get proficient at nonsense, but there's no need for it, and you proved there's no need for it. And the other thing I have to punctuate here, it's really easy to use. It's very user-friendly. And that's critical for creatives, because they're not going to monster their way through. And that's, unfortunately, especially when we interface at a high-level network, like networks and bigger corps have their antiquated system that you have to plug into. You don't have that problem because you have all of it. And the other thing, simple stuff that we get jammed up with is, if I have 25 freelancers on a job, did I get an invoice from them? Where's the invoices? Because now I have to answer to accounting. Now I have to answer to other people that aren't really part of it, but trying to keep on top of all that is monstrous. And you're targeting video. That was kind of where you were thinking, but I saw it immediately in, live production. I saw it immediately. You can move this into a theater. You can move this across the board, wherever production lies, even at an agency level, wherever production lies, there's a need for this organization.
For sure. And, as a creative at heart, I really personally enjoy my time creating and in the ideas and in the production of, and ultimately to get to business results. And so much like I think everyone out there watching probably feels the same way. Would rather be creating, producing, using your skills than looking for an email or trying to chase down some loose ends. And so, what we try to do is, make it so that you can save about 20% of your time, reduce it on the wasted time and effort, so that you can get your time back to do what you love.
Yeah, I would probably amp that percentage up. I would probably say you'd get close to 40%, because those of us who sit at the higher level now, we're bound to take on all this admin part of it, and that's a pain in the ass. And high level production outs, if you go up 2 generations from Faro production and move into the 300, 400 person, yeah, you have an admin department, yeah, you have this, but they have the same problem. Each one becomes a silo, and then trying to cross communicate, it's all the same. And wouldn't it be great if there was one app out there that everybody could relate to and use and check back on? And you did it. I think I commend you. And I want to add one more thing as we continue down this path, going back to your instincts to collaborate. You reached out to me and said, could you pull some people together? And you and one of your designers, Aaron, come on and let's just take a look at what we have. And I don't want to use the word pitch, but that is what it is. So I looked at my crew and I looked at diversity of people and said, okay, she's going to look at it this way. He's going to look at it that way. This one's going to look at it that way. They all work in different facets of the entertainment thing. And to a person, everybody was overwhelmed. Everybody saw a use, whether it was the same, but everybody saw a use. And that's that collaborative mind you have.
Thank you for sharing that. And maybe just one final word is that I think regardless of whether you decide to use CROOW, which as Joe said is CROOW, but whether you decide to use CROOW or not, I think the takeaway here is maybe take a look at how are you spending your time currently, and really try to make sure that you're spending the majority of the time on the things that you love and or are great at, and work to reorient that. And I always say, of course, you're never going to get the undesirable tasks down to zero. It's impossible. We all have to do something undesirable. But as long as you are minimizing that and making sure that you're spending the majority of the time in the things that you're good at and you love, then you're going to be happier, more productive, and have more longevity. Yep.
It's interesting we're having this conversation. This is funny. My wife is actually, she's been a PT for her whole life. Very, very high end. So she started her own practice now collaboratively with her other practice. But it's interesting because she's never been in the entrepreneur world. She's never been the sole proprietor. So watching her struggle now, and we had a conversation that I've had with so many people who went into, who started their own production companies. I said, you have to constantly evaluate when you're basing your costs. You have to evaluate what we consider non-productive time, which is your admin. And that has to be built into that cost. Because if Joe Scott Jafaro is spending, an 8-hour day to his client doing what I do best, but then I go home and spend another 5 hours trying to keep track of everything that happened, we look at that as non-billable time. And it really can't be. But you can't bill for a 15-hour day and stay in business. So what you learn to do is, how do I efficiently narrow that down so that the 5 hours when I come home comes down to an hour? Or how much of that can I squeeze into the day? And that all comes from something, an app like what you built is something that I can just look at and I can, okay, click this, click this, click this, got it, next page. Click this, click this, click this, got it, next page. And I'm done. And I'm not shuffling papers. I'm not opening apps that are crashing on me. I'm not doing all these things. And it's fun to use. I mean, it's gorgeous. And you keep refining it. But I'm telling you, especially those of us who are Apple diehards and talk about brand loyalty. That was what separated me from Microsoft. Was Apple was built for creatives. It has our look. It feels right to us. It's intuitive, and that's what your product.
And that makes a big difference too. Just as an aside, there's been research done on product design and literally like the image and design of products. And when creatives use products that look good, are easy, kind of designed in a way conducive to creatives, they actually have a happier emotion throughout the day. And I think that's where Apple has won. And of course, that's something that we took to heart in the design of our product. And so would certainly encourage where possible to use the products that are, that make you happy and don't make you struggle.
Yeah, no, that's great. And you're also, we're looking at a generation coming up that's right behind us. I've learned so much going out and being involved in like indie films, but indie film people under 35, under 34. And I just sit back and I watch them interact, and their whole thing is this. They are mavens. They can just hit this thing and go boom, and hit this thing and go boom. And they get through it so much faster, even exchanging networking information. So it's, again, your platform took that into account so that it's user friendly for a multitude of generations.
For sure. And, we really want to appeal to the next generation of leaders. And that's really core to what we're doing here.
Yeah. And I don't endorse shit. It's not my style. I don't care. I mean, I could get paid a lot of money to do a lot of things, and I don't care, because if it's not of value to my world, and if it's not, I won't even endorse a person. If somebody says, hey, would you make a recommendation for me to this? I said, if I haven't worked with you, no. I need to know you. I need to spend time with you, and I need to know that you're of our tribe. And if you're not, you're out. So that goes down to tech. And obviously, I'm an engineer, so I look at tech very seriously. And that GUI, that human interface is critically important on all levels. And you covered it all.
Well, thank you, Joe. That means a lot coming from you, because I know that you have a very high set of accolades behind you, and also high endorsement from our mutual connection, Kevin, as well. So thank you.
Yeah, no, you earned it, and it is. Can you just give me, we're coming close to the end here, but what is your drive? What is your, forget the dollars, everybody's going to make money. And I'm pretty sure you're going to make a ton with this. So, but what is your real drive behind doing that?
Yeah, and it's interesting you said more the drive than the dollars, and that's really what my dad always used to tell me, which is don't worry so much about the money. Do what you love, do what you're passionate about, what you want to focus on, and the money will follow. And really, that's where CROOW comes in. I'm really passionate for building the software that solves this problem that I saw so prominently in the video industry. And I really would love to make life better and easier for all the video production and creatives out there, because I personally saw in my agency some of the struggles of creatives and video production team members that would just get bogged down in the admin and the logistics, and over time it would drag them down to a place where they were either less productive, or maybe their creativity was waning, and or other team members would have to give them pep talks, and so I would love to make it so that is minimized as much as possible for all those creatives and video leaders out there.
Yeah, and just real quick, how does someone get a hold of the product, and how do they find out more about what all this is? I know this sounds like a sales pitch. I'm telling you, I am not pitching this. This is sincere. I want to make sure people get this.
Sure. So it's at CROOW.com, CROOW.com. And we've also made it so that you can sign up and use for free. There's a model essentially where you can do about 10, maybe 15 to 20 projects for free before you're asked to upgrade. And we wanted to do it that way so that everybody could just be able to try it, use it for themselves, see if it works for them. If it does, great. If it doesn't, it's okay. You're not out any money.
Okay, I'm going to say we're out of time, but I just looked at a note that I wanted to just hit, and you summed this up so beautifully, and I'm going to kind of jump us back to a point. Production work, agency, it gets overlooked. Talk about the video production work. There's what's in these agencies that our audience can go track, or newbies should be looking at, not just networks and not just concerts and not just theater. There's a lot of work where you came from, correct?
For sure. So there are so many agencies and video production companies out there, and I would encourage you to look at them. Maybe just to give you a quick overview, there are agencies that these days are more and more digital and towards storytelling, and they may have video as part of the agency. So think of it as maybe there's a 50 or 100 person agency out there that has a 5-person video production team. Could be interesting if you'd like to do video that's connected into broader campaigns. There's also, of course, a lot of video production teams out there that are doing commercials and corporate videos and animated videos and all sorts of productions. And those teams range from a few people entrepreneurially up to 100 people plus. And there's amazing work coming out of all these teams. And one thing that's nice about working for a team like this is that typically you'll get to work across multiple industries and across multiple clients and multiple types of projects. And with that, you'll get so much learning that if you decide that you want to focus and specialize, you'll be able to, take that learning and hone in on what you love most.
Yep. That's what all of us end up doing. We try something and then go, oh, wow. And then you see more, and then you see more. It is, as to be philosophical, it is a journey. And each step of the way, you're going to see more. My analogy is I climb one mountain thinking that's what I want to do. And then I get to the top of it and go, oh, wow, there's 5 more cool mountains. And then I go after those mountains. And then it's just never ending. And as long as you enjoy mountain climbing, you'll be fine.
That is always the way. There's always another mountain to climb. And I think it's good to put in the good effort to make it to the top of one mountain and then use that as a stepping stone to the next larger mountain.
David, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to share your journey and where you are. And thank you for developing this product. It is going to satisfy a lot of needs out there. And you're going to see that the more of us use it, the more of us are going to find ways to use it in ways you never even thought about. And that's just going to expand what you're doing. So bravo.
Thank you for having me, Joe.
No problem.